Swadhyaya, Mysticism and Spirituality. Those who have established themselves in their spiritual being through the practice of spiritual cult are the real human beings. Others who do not move on the subtler and sublime path of spirituality and behave like animals are humans only in name. Human beings alone have the privilege to do sadhana. Animals, because of their intellectual deficiencies, are unable to adhere to the spiritual cult. Animals are guided by instincts. They do not know the why and how of things. Human beings, on the other hand, are led by the mind. Animals cannot go beyond their instincts. In case of great intellectual class, however, the animal mind, like the human, gets subtilized. This is generally found to occur with those animals who remain in contact with humans. But the development that is discernible in this case is not spiritual. It is simply intellectual. Dogs and monkeys who are trained, for instance, can be made a bit more intelligent than other ones. Human beings, on the other hand, have the capacity to develop even in the spiritual realm. Those who do not pay heed to this special gift are animals, nay, even worse than animals. Animals are unable to make efforts for their spiritual development, whereas humans do have this ability. You cannot call a beggar a miser, for the beggar has no money to donate. If a moneyed person, on the other hand, hesitates to donate, that person is presumably a miser. The human is sometimes described as a rational animal. Such a view does not seem consistent. A human cannot be an animal. In the cosmological order, at one particular stage of development, a unit is called an animal. At another particular point, it is inanimate. And at another particular point is a plant. Therefore, it does not behove to call a human a rational animal. For in that case, the human can also be called a rational stone. When in the process of psychophysical development, the physical structure becomes complicated, and the psychic structure also develops to the extent that it starts controlling the physical body, you call that particular phase human. In the creation of the universe, the consciousness that is existing as the nucleus of the triangular basic principle is the Supreme Father, the basic cognition, the avidya Sakti that is working with the basic cognition as the operative principle but is not yet manifested is called the basic principle. There is no expression in the basic principle, neither physical nor psychic. She is active, but there is no effect of operative nature. The expression does not occur so long as there is a proper equilibrium between the basic principle and the basic cognition. When they lose their balance, the theoretical expressions takes place as a sequel. In this stage, it is called the primordial principle. The primordial principle is something theoretically manifest. It does not fall within the periphery of experience due to the equilibrium of Shiva and Shakti, that is, basic cognition and basic principles. But it is theoretically well established. It does not seem proper to attribute to such state, yet the situation is akin to. There is action, vibration in the basic principle, but due to the absence of any measuring psychic entity, it cannot be said to be temporal. Though it is related to the time factor, there does not exist any second entity brought about due to curvatures in the primordial principle. This is why we do not find another time measuring factor there. This curve is its special characteristic. In the third phase of manifestation, due to the internal clash and cohesion, curvatures come into existence. The difference between the vibrational principle and the witnessing counterpart becomes explicit. The vibrational principle is called in Sanskrit Bhavani Shakti. The temporal factor is established in the development of what is Kala or time? Time is nothing but the psychic measurement of the relative motivity. Now sadhana. If the vibrational expressions is towards the crude, the unit will face retardation. The final or culminating point of retardation contains within it the history of the full expressions. In the crudest point of the human mind, therefore, lies the history of its innumerable lives. Even a timorous stroke will rip open the burden a person in carrying and make one able to see oneself. The development upwards from the nadir of supreme cognition is progress. So long as the fundamental negativity does not receive a stroke, there does not occur any progress, any development. A seed sprouts forth if struck by light, water, and soil. Similarly, when the fundamental negativity of a unit, that is, the Kula Kundalini, receives the stroke of the mantra, it awakens. But so long as the desire to move towards the Paramatma is not aroused, this phenomenon does not take place. This does not happen with an animal because of its intellectual deficiency. Matter, due to external and internal clash, is converted into ectoplasm. The crude stuff is metamorphosed into Chittanu, mind atom, ectoplasmic particles. The intensity of this clash and cohesion depends upon the intensity of internal and external classes. After the animal mind, the mind that succeeds due to the immense physical and intellectual or even intuitional classes is the human mind. And the body that is associated with it is the human body. Sadhana, the spiritual cult, is a progress from the crudeness of the matter to the subtlest entity, that is a march, a movement from the last point of the vibrational principles to the nucleus of the basic principle, the controlling point of the fundamental triangle of force. Sadhana is therefore a march to place from where one has come. Those who want to make themselves the attraction or the ideal of the world add a Shrii before their names. The term connotes the charming entity, Maya, Prakriti. Supreme cognition is the shelter of Shrii. And that is why he is also called Srinivasa in Sanskrit. The movement towards the entity that has sheltered the universe is sadhana. Since humans are weak, they need the aid of some other entity for this movement. From where will they get the stamina, the strength for the movement? Assuredly, it can be had only from the entity that is the source of this stamina, this strength. Whatever stamina, physical, mental, or spiritual, exists within you is not your creation. Can you create anything? No, you cannot. You convert the external energy derived from food, light, water, and soil into vital energy. You cannot create any energy. You can simply convert it to other forms. You convert sound energy, magnetic energy, etc. into the vital energy. You then reconvert that vital energy into other form of energy. While working, you convert your vital energy into mechanical energy. While speaking, you convert your vital energy into sound energy. The moment this vital energy is gone, the living unit turns into a corpse. You derive your vital energy from the external world, a gift of Paramapurusha. Similarly, the strength to move towards the Supreme Father can also be obtained from Him. But tragedy is that you do not ask the spiritual force from Him. Your sole concentration is on earning name, fame, money, promotion, prestige, and other such worldly gains. You remain so busy with your worldly desires that you hardly manage to get any time in your daily life to ask for spiritual strength. In ancient times, when the desire to move on the path of spirituality was aroused, human beings felt the need of a guide to show the path. It is this desire that is manifested in the Vedas. When the desire to move on the path is aroused, he is compelled to come as a guide to seekers. He cannot just ignore the seekers. Ask the way and you will get it. But it is not enough to get the way, for one also needs to walk on that way, on that path. The strength to move forward lies within you. The only impediment being encumbrance of sins that is on your head due to your past actions. Remove that burden, be light and march on. Bhagavan Lord Buddha said the same thing when he asked his disciple to jettison the burden that is in the boat. Desire is therefore not enough. One needs to perform some tangible action. That action is called intuitional practice, spiritual cult. This cult is also called Tantra. It is not enough to read books, scriptures. One will have to be practical, will have to do something in practical life. You need to move from the fundamental negativity to the fundamental positivity. Through sadhana, a person makes himself or herself light, at the same time gets the attraction of him. Furthermore, one needs to surrender oneself completely. Until and unless there is 100% surrender, it is naive to think in terms of accomplishing the task. Now surrender. The story goes in the Mahabharata that so long as Draupadi kept even a grain of dependence on her own strength, she remained constantly under the threat of being exposed before the congregation. The moment she found herself completely helpless and respond all faith in the Lord Narayana, she got the divine help. So one who feels this attraction and surrenders oneself completely to him is bound to get his help. One, on the other hand, who keeps even 1 paisa with oneself fails to get that help. A natural question comes up here. Since human life is enveloped through animal stages, the impression of the animal life is bound to work within the framework of human psychology. In this situation, it is not unlikely for human beings to commit mistakes, to commit sin. How is it possible to move forward with this encumbrance acquired during the animal stages? The answer has been provided by the Lord Himself. If even the most degraded person remembers Him single-mindedly, He will relieve that person from his burden of sin. There is, however, a difference between the English term sin and the Sanskrit word papa. In sin, there are involved religious, doctrinal, and biblical connotations. The Sanskrit term papa is more explicit. Paropakaraha punyaya papaya parapidanam. Those actions that help to develop the physical, intellectual, and spiritual strata of human beings are punya. And those actions that obstructs this are papa. The biggest papi is called durachari in Sanskrit, and one who even the durachari is called papi is sudurachara. There is a common term in Sanskrit, pataka, sin. There are two forms of pataka, papa and pratyavaya. Going against the don't is papa. Pratyavaya means not to do what one should do. So in Sanskrit, the do's are called vidhi and don'ts nishedh. The whole social structure revolves around vidhi and nishedh. So those who shrink duties and responsibilities do commit a great harm to society. It is this lack of dutifulness in our country, India, today, that has caused great retardation in different spheres of life. It has also caused spiritual degeneration. One should perform good actions regularly, should do sadhana properly. These are the do's which everyone is expected to perform. Those who do not pay heed to these responsibilities do indulge in pratyavaya. Pataka is the collective name of papa and pratyavaya. Patakas are of three kinds. First, the ordinary kind. These are undesirable acts after which the person may repent. For instance, someone taken the money of others, that person act will be called pataka, for he or she can pay back the money and repent of the act. There is no atonement, however, for atipataka. If, for example, one chops off the arms of an innocent person, one cannot pay those limbs back in the same capacity. According to the Shastras, scriptures, persons indulging in these atipataka acts can make atonement only if they renounce their worldly life and fully offer themselves to the cause of humanity in the service of mankind. The third kind of pataka is mahapataka. There is no penance that will atone for mahapataka either. Furthermore, the result of mahapataka is of recurring nature. If a businessman, for instance, discovers a new method of adulteration, he commits mahapatakas. Mixing papaya seeds with a black pepper is bound to deceive purchasers. The discoverer of this new method shows the world a new path in the sphere of adulteration. The effect of this act is bound to be of a recurring nature. The atonement of mahapataka is like atipataka. That is, this person also should renounce his or her worldly life and should offer himself or herself in the service of mankind. There is, however, a difference. Since this person's act is more serious, this person will have to invent something that will have a recurring good effect on society. The invention of penicillin would be a case in point. There is no other way out for the Mahapataki. There is an interesting story about this. When the defeat of Ravana became almost certain, he sat in a prayer imploring Lord Shiva to save him from the incoming disaster. But Lord Shiva remained quiescent and did not pay heed to his prayers. Parvati was also there. What happened is that the heart of the mother is more soft than that of the father. Seeing the miserable condition of Ravana, a devout of Lord Shiva, she started pleading with Lord Shiva on his behalf. The latter, however, refused to listen to even Parvati's implorings. He had to see to his duties and not to hear Parvati's lecture. When Parvati finally pressured him very much, Lord Shiva revealed the situation. He said that Ravana was a great puppy, so he could not do anything for him. Parvati continued in her obstinacy, pleading on behalf of Ravana. She said that at most he might be an Atipataki. The Lord thereupon said that he was a Mahapataki. Though it would have been Atipataka to kidnap a lady, Ravana's act was Mahapataka, for he carried out his act in the garb of a sadhu. If he had done it as Ravana, he would have been an Atipataka or Atipataki. His act would not have had a lasting effect. But since thenceforward no housewife would believe a sadhu, the effect of his act was of incurring nature. There is, however, a way out even for the Mahapataki. If the Mahapataki dwells on the Lord in his or her thought single-mindedly and offers himself in the service of humanity, he or she will also be able to lead a responsible life. He or she will also get liberation. Paramapurusa, the father of all fathers, the multiple of all multiplicities, the nucleus of all nuclei, knows everything. He is omniscient. He knows Sarva. The cosmic Father knows everything. He is omniscient, prescient and post-sent. The earth is created in him. What had happened in the past comes within the vibrational principles. What is going to happen in the future also comes within the vibrational principles. The present has no independent existence. It is nothing but an adjustment between the past and the future. That is why the present varies in accordance with the personal differences. The omniscient Purusa, Pratyagatma, is the Lord of both heaven and hell. He is the father of both developed sadhakas and suduracharas or mahapatakis. There is therefore no question of his hating the suduracharas and loving the good sadhakas. All are one to him. He cannot ostracize the former and embrace the latter. There is no place outside him where he can throw off the Suduracharas. He cannot disown them either. For in that case, he would not remain Patit Pavan, savior of the degraded. It is therefore naive to lose heart. Even if one is Sudurachara, he or she should not get discouraged. He or she should, on the contrary, do sadhana, undergo the prescribed penance. There is no reason to fear. This world is not for cowards. Only the brave can enjoy the world. If love for him is awakened, there is no reason to fear. Your longing for him, however, should not be attributional. On the contrary, it should be non-attributional. Your attraction to the Supreme is called devotion, bhakti, whereas the attraction to any finite objectivity is called ashakti. Attraction to friends is ashakti. Attraction to God is bhakti. In the case of asakti, the object is limited. In the case of bhakti, it is unlimited. Mysticism is a never-ending endeavor to find a link between finite and infinite. It is the first phase of non-attributional devotion. Attributional devotion is no devotion. There are two types of non-attributional devotion. The first is psycho-spiritual devotion, whereas the second is pure spiritual devotion. The reactive momenta remains mixed into this type of psycho-spiritual devotion. The reactive momenta remains mixed into this type of psycho-spiritual devotion of internal projection of the subliminal human mind. And these reactive momenta of the subliminal human mind disturb mental equipoise. As a result, the mind eventually comes back again to the lower status. A person rises during the period of sadhana and comes back to the original stage when in normal life. Here, love for God does not become of permanent nature. While quarreling unnecessarily, one does not remember untoward nature of one's act. Later on, one repents. But when the remembrance of the nature of the act becomes permanent nature, it is called Dhruva Smriti. In the non-attributional devotion of the pure spiritual type, the reactive momenta cannot function within the scope of the subliminal stratum. Even where the sadhaka does not long for name, fame, or wealth, but worships him in order to experience inexplicable bliss, the devotion is attributional. It is attributional psycho-spiritual devotion. But where the devotee worships him only in order to please him, there the devotion is of purely spiritual nature. There does not exist the feeling of duality. Such a devotee is called Gopi or Gopa. The term connotes one who worships God only to please him. Gopayate yah sah gopa. One who has made it a mission to attain Paramatma will assuredly attain him. You are sadhaka, and you should always remember this. Your love for God, your devotion for God should be of non-attributional or spiritual nature. 20th October 1967, DMC at Meerut.